current events, religion and spirituality, the nature of the cosmos, conspiracies, biblical prophecies, and completely unimportant stuff like comic book genre film, TV, and video games, all from a Christian and Catholic perspective. This is the final podcast you'll ever hear.
And hello everybody, this is the final podcast you'll ever hear. So my name's Matt McCarsell.
How's it going, people? My name is Paul Garcia.
When we came up with this idea of this podcast, we thought of this really witty name that actually seems to be a little prophetic right about now. So it's kind of a little grim, I guess. Didn't mean for that to happen.
Given the nature of the events going on, I guess it's kind of fitting.
Yeah, exactly. So just a little bit about ourselves. Paul, you want to start it off? Just kind of.
Sure. Paul Garcia. I live in Southeast Texas. Actually, we're both from Southeast Texas, but in my late 20s, or not late 20s, like late 30s, early 40s, in that area. And I am a practicing Catholic. And so a lot of my viewpoints are becoming, not all of them, but some will be coming from that. And pass it on to you, Matt.
Yeah, so Paul's probably ashamed, but we're like long-time, lifelong best friends, and I come from more of the Protestant kind of background. So that was sort of the whole idea behind this podcast is let's talk about things that interest us from that perspective. And then, just kind of like to increase the understanding between the two. And also just about all the crazy current events happening nowadays. I mean, at the time that we thought of this, it seemed pretty crazy, but now it's like every day there's something going on. So,
yeah, it's crazy now. Now with I believe there was an earthquake in just today or yesterday. Another earthquake that went on, not the one in Mexico, but there was another one.
It's been hard to keep up with. It was after Mexico City, which is the horrible one. I have a good friend, one of my director pals that lives out there, was in the epicenter in Puebla, and it's just insane. But right after that, it was like New Zealand, Japan, North Korea supposedly was not
in North Korea. That's the one that I'm thinking about right there.
Yeah.
North Korea. Yeah.
So, I and honestly, that's partially why we're doing it this way. This is sort of the low budget. We're ourselves recovering from Harvey.
Yes.
It's been kind of crazy. So, this was kind of our low budget way of just getting up and running. So the production quality is probably not a quarter of what it will be once we're 100%. But kind of wanted to just share that experience and really what the whole podcast is about. Like Paul said, I mean, we're both, I guess the further explanation of our background, we both married with several kids, kind of the nuclear family. I don't know what do you call yourself, bro? Are you more like I say I'm I'm American first, but obviously we're both from a Latino background.
You know what's interesting, because when I get on this conversation with other people, I always tell people I'm a Texan first, and then I'm an American. Because honestly, we are our own like little nation here,
right,
within the U.S. And people who probably from not Texas are gonna hear that and be like, okay, well, what's up with that? But yeah, honestly, like if you're not from Texas and you ever come here, there's a tremendous pride in Texas from people who live here. So I always tell, people at work or whoever, I'm talking to, that I would say I'm Texan first and then I'm American, which kind of, people be like, okay, well, that's treason or something. Well, actually, it's not treason. totally within our
It's
right.
not treason if you live in Texas.
It's not, and
It
and
makes
and
total sense.
and then you can get off on the whole secession thing too, which is probably a topic for another longer topic for another day. But yeah, that's pretty much how how we are here, and I kind of want to go back and kind of go back and go and touch on what I said earlier, which is I said I was practicing, which is I should go back and say I'm actually cradle Catholic. I was born cradle Catholic, which means you're born into Catholicism, and then from there you either if you go by all the sacraments and all the practices and all the dogma that comes with the church, then you either become a practicing Catholic or you're just one of these Sunday Catholics or what they call like submarine Catholics, which are they pop up every time like Christmas comes around. We have
Oh,
midnight mass, then they show up, and
I didn't
then
know
once
that's what it
once
was
that's
called.
over,
Yeah.
once that's over, then they go back down. So
Yeah.
those would then Catholicism call them submarine
Nice.
Catholics.
All right, cool. I thought it was like an Aquaman reference or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting. Well, we have that
cradle
in
Catholic.
obviously in our church. I have an interesting background too. I've kind of bounced all over the place to come to where I am, but I always find your explanation of Catholicism interesting because I always learn so much. I didn't realize how multifaceted it was until just a few years ago when we really started talking about this sort of thing seriously. So that's definitely going to be part of the conversation. I know for us, like the biggest topics in our lives, obviously aside from family and that sort of thing, which is always important, but it's definitely like conspiracy and the big picture, what's really going on in the universe, how we got here, that sort of thing. And then also
Yes.
the dumb stuff, which normally I think that's how we'll start the show off. And I shouldn't say dumb stuff because it's very important to some some of us. But
Yeah.
like, the
Yeah. No, and not insulting anybody out
right,
there, but yeah, there's just some
yeah.
stuff that yeah.
So I
Okay.
I would like to know, like, what do you think? I mean, besides all the craziness of trying to survive through Harvey, which was a mess, but I know I got to catch up on the Defenders. I'm so behind on my Marvel stuff. Um, I don't
Um.
know where you're at on all that.
Well, I am of course, I am a super. I love the DC TV universe. Okay,
Yeah,
I am
super.
all in on the DC TV. As a matter of fact, I saw on a website that last year they did this crossover. They do the crossover with Supergirl,
Oh yeah,
Arrow, DC, the Legends show, and Flash. And last year was over the Invaders, and Invaders storyline. Invaders, right? It's
yep,
Invaders storyline, right?
right. The
Anyway,
Invasion storyline.
Dominators. I believe that's what it is. Anyway, but that was a good one. You saw everybody in there. But this year, like I got super hyped because they're doing it in a crisis on think of like crisis on Infinite Earth
Infinite Earth.
storyline.
I saw that,
Yes,
and my thought process behind that is because
you
Supergirl's
have
not in the universe, and they're finally going to merge it, which I think they should have done that a season ago. Which makes sense. And me, I'm the same way. I'm kind of one of these guys where I'm not a huge fan of the DC movie universe, but the TV stuff is great. I wish that could somehow morph into the films because the films aside from Wonder Woman have, in my opinion, been pretty abysmal and disappointing. Wonder Woman was awesome, surprisingly, but everything else is just I'm not a fan. But the TV stuff is great. I think Supergirl is my favorite, which I'm in the minority, I know. But to me, Supergirl's what Superman should have been. You know?
yes, and we've gone over that too.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
So
but
yeah, but that
sorry.
being said, I'm just so behind on the Marvel stuff, and that's where I love Marvel because it's TV and movies, and supposedly it's one cohesive universe. So some people have said it's not the case, but in my mind, in my head canon, it is, and I think at some point it will be. So I try to watch every single Marvel period, from every Netflix show. But there's so many now; it's just hard to keep up.
It is hard to keep up. That's why I had to, a while back I had to I just I guess kind of gave up trying to keep up with with some of them, like which I'm gonna get back into this year because Gotham seems like it's about to heat up a lot. But like I kind of sort of fell off of Gotham. The Marvel shows, Defenders, I saw that. To me, it was short, a little too short. Maybe they should made it like a couple extra episodes longer. But I can understand, like, the storyline that went in. You could make it like a 13 episode series or a 13 episode show or something like that. So it was cool. I think it's kind of, with Defenders, you only see Daredevil in costume, and the rest of
Yeah.
it's kind of there,
Well,
just
thanks
street
for
clothes.
spoiling, Larry, because I'm only
Oh,
halfway through. I
well,
think we should
that's
probably do that.
not really a
Well, I know it's
spoiler
really
because
not. I know
it's
nobody wears a costume except, yeah. Well,
yeah.
I kind of had to skip around, and I know this is totally blasphemous, but so my wife is the first superhero show she's ever actually wanted to voluntarily watch is Daredevil.
Uh-huh.
So we watched it
Okay.
together, and we watched season 2, and
Okay.
then
Well, she gets points for that.
yeah, and I started to watch the other shows without her. But afterwards, she's like, okay, we'll try out the Defenders, and we got into it together. But I still haven't finished the last episode of Luke Cage, and I totally skipped Iron Fist. And my oldest son is like, how could you skip that? It's like an important part of the Defenders. I'm like, I don't know.
You know what? I skipped it too, but I'm gonna admit that the only reason I skipped it is because I heard such bad reviews
Yeah, well, I watched the
from
first 20
online.
minutes, and I think it's valid, at least from what I saw. Just wasn't drawing. And
I
I like Iron Fist. Like, I remember my uncle, that was like the comics he gave me when I was a kid. It was Iron Fist and
oh yeah,
Luke Cage. It was
yeah.
like all
That for
coming up.
me it was. I remember distinctly as a kid, uh, the character Iron Fist because I thought he was so cool with his glowing hand.
Yeah.
And I remember back in the comics, it was more than just a glow, like how it is in the TV show. Like there was actually like an aura around his hand, and it kind of almost had like a flame effect coming off of it.
Yep, I
And
remember.
that in the comics, yeah. So I was like I thought that was so cool. So every time as a kid, I would draw like a superhero.
Oh,
I
yeah, I
would
remember that.
always put that in his hand or coming out of his eyes, like the same Iron Fist type effect. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that was totally one of my favorite characters as
I
a
thought
kid.
maybe just your characters had like a slimy hand or some kind of,
Right?
yeah,
But I gotta admit
some
too, I
kind
didn't
of
see it
defect.
either because I heard such bad reviews, and then I talked to my cousin Andrew, and I said, "Hey, what do you think about Iron Fist?" And he's like, "Do you just skip it?" And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "But I would have loved to go. I would have loved to have watched Iron Fist without any influences as far as like what everybody thought about it."
Yeah, and that's kind of the buzz on the Inhumans show that's just a couple weeks away. It's kind of a bummer. I know a lot of people are really into Inhumans. I've never was a big Inhumans fan. I kind of feel like they were low budget X-Men, but it's a cool series and as far as the comics are concerned. But yeah, the TV.
The only one I knew out of a few minutes was Black Bolt.
You're
That's it,
right, of
really.
course. That's the big one.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was the big one, like I said. That's the only one I ever really knew um, at that age, at that time. So, I mean, other than that, I didn't, And then yeah, you see all the bad press about it. You hear all the bad reviews, and will I fit it into my schedule? Probably not, um, because on top of keeping up with the DC TV shows. I have, my kids and a job, and, wife and everything else.
Yeah, it's like you
So
have to
it's
have a
hard.
your full-time job has to be watching every single comic book show. Like I
Yeah.
tell the kids all the time, I said, you could take, like not the best superhero genre show right now, like Legends of Tomorrow, for example. I like it, don't get me wrong. It's cool. It kind of reminds me of like a Power Rangers meets the DC universe. But it's not obviously the best of the shows, but you could put a show like that and play that during when we were growing up in the 90s, late 80s, whatever, and that would be the number one show, like period.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know,
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
it would have killed everything else, like by far. It's just there's so much. I'm always telling my
Yeah.
wife, I say we're in the golden age of television. Like even bad shows are really decent.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's just so much to
right.
choose from, and it's kind of oversaturation. Oversaturation. I mean, they're coming out with Cloak and Dagger. I love those characters, and the Runaways, and all these other
Yeah,
properties. It's like, geez, it's just hard to keep up. And not to mention all the new Fox, Marvel Fox TV shows, which evidently don't take place in the X-Men universe or might. It's really confusing. Did you watch Legion?
no, I didn't. And I've kind of had my I've and not in like a I completely hate uh the series as a whole, or I hate the property as a whole,
Yeah.
but I've kind of sort of just given up on the whole X-Men deal.
See,
Like
you're not the only one though. A lot of people have,
like
and
I have completely given up. The only and I know they're going to make another movie too. I think I
right.
posted about I ran about this online. Um uh It's like, okay, I'm not going to watch another X-Men property until they reboot the dang thing. Then I'll go back in and I'll watch
Well,
it.
they kind of do. They like soft reboot every film,
Yeah,
and
you're
they
right. It's a
always end up
soft reboot.
and they always
It's a
end up
soft,
in a post-apocalyptic. Everyone dies at the
yes,
end. It's like,
yes,
but
exactly. Like,
you know,
okay, like,
I'm in the minority where, to me, even the bad, where I don't even think they're bad. To me, they're just very different, and I
right.
like them. I like the newer X-Men First Class films. That whole timeline, I enjoyed it. I didn't really have a problem. I know it's not like the comics. They take way too many liberties. The costumes look like bad cosplay. But I don't know. I like them. And the TV series are totally different, but in some respects are even better. So I was just really impressed. I wish I would have seen the whole season, which I will at some point, especially now we're doing this podcast.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
Legion
yeah.
was really surprising. It was like, wow, it was really good.
See, I think
Just
it's just for me.
unexpected.
It's just a matter of it's a matter of too many shows that you just can't keep up with all of them. And for me, honestly, for me, and we go and I'm not trying to bring up a whole which one is better, but for me I've always been a DC fan first, and then I've been a Marvel fan.
Yeah,
Um, so
I think
I'm
we're the
naturally
same.
going to flow towards the DC properties over Marvel.
I think we grew up the same way, so that's probably why we have the same sensibilities. But I feel like I kind of abandoned DC when the films weren't going well. And I know the TV series are great, but I don't know.
Oh,
I guess I still have this bias that film's always better than TV, even though like film overall is fledging and TV's doing really well nowadays. So I mean, there's so many great filmmakers that are working in TV because, you know,
I wish and I've said this before. Uh, we've had this conversation before. I wish that the DC movie universe was as fun as the TV universe, the DC TV universe. That's where, like I said, that's why I put those four shows, now maybe five. I don't even know if I'm going to watch. What's it called? Uh, what's that? What's that new DC TV show? Um, Black
Black Lightning.
Black Lightning. There you go.
Yeah,
I
that
was
looks
never.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks cool. I was never really familiar with that character too much,
Oh, see, I
so I
did.
don't
I
know
like
if
that character.
I don't know if I'm gonna fit that in. I probably will just because it's DC, and like
You
I
know
said, I'm
about
more of a
Teen
DC
Titans,
fan.
right?
Yeah, yeah, Teen Titans. Yeah, yeah. Oh yes. Oh, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
another one we can get on. I'm crazy hyped for that one too. But like I'm more likely to watch Black Lightning before I go and watch like
Another
I don't know
disappointing movie.
Whatever new Marvel X-Men sub property
Oh
or
yeah.
faction comes out with. I'm more likely to watch DC first and then. But if I have time and I'm not doing nothing, maybe then I'll pick back up on Agents of Shield or whatever else Marvel's got going on. Then I'll probably say, okay, yeah. But nothing against Marvel. I mean, nothing against those shows and nothing like that. But just I've always been a DC fan first. You know
Yeah,
that.
no, it's good, and I'm glad that we'll have that perspective because obviously, if you're focusing more on DC stuff and on Marvel, I guess that's a good balance. So we'll talk more
But
specifics about stuff that's coming out. I just wanted to kind of give our general view where we're coming from,
yeah,
so people kind of know where we stand on such important
I'm
issues
sure
as the
we'll
DV.
get tons of hate mail. I'm sure we just opened ourselves up to her. I cannot believe it.
Right.
First
I
you hate
think
Marvel,
the only
and then
mail we'll probably get is my
my
mom
God.
saying, "What are you talking about?" It's like you're in fifth grade again.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, so let's get to the juicy stuff. So obviously, the Harvey experience was crazy. I know we both had experiences. I kind of kept in touch with you via text and on the
Yeah.
phone, and I worked until the last second. I work. My day job is in general aviation, and planes are going up 365 days. They don't care all over the world. So I was working until that Friday night, and I remember leaving the office like 7 o'clock at night, thinking, I think I might be off for a day or two. And our company, we were like filled to the brim with meteorologists, and they were like, it's probably not going to be a big deal. That's why they had us work until the last minute. But I did not walk back into my office for 2.5 weeks.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, it was just
Wow.
crazy. I mean, it doesn't help that I work an hour away, but I think it just hit Houston so unexpectedly to that degree. And everybody knows somebody that was like completely inundated or just destroyed, like everything destroyed. It doesn't matter what side of town they lived in, what socioeconomic background they came from. Um, my parents' house, obviously, they really bad flooding. My aunt and uncle. I
Yeah.
mean, it was
How is their recovery going along?
it's coming along little by little, but I think that's the main thing. We've grown up in this area and we see storms all the time, but it's like 2 weeks, everything's back to normal. This time feels different. It's like, things aren't back to normal right away. I mean, just down the street, I live really close to Target. I just instinctively go there to get stuff. I drive up there. I'm like, oh, I forgot this whole part of extension of my neighborhood was under 20 plus feet of water. It's closed.
Yeah, that's right.
So, like, we were an island. We were pretty fortunate that we didn't have any major damage. But everyone around us, like, they were doing Coast Guard rescues just 3 blocks down from the house and, from the air, which I hate heights. I don't know if I would have made that. I would have,
You've
like,
been like, yeah, I'm good. No, it's
yeah, I'll
okay.
just
I'm
take
good.
my chances. You have a small
Yeah, and you're like
flotation
standing
device.
on your roof, and you're like, no,
Right.
I'm good. I'm good. I'll be cool.
Yeah, which honestly,
Just
I've,
just throw
I
me a life vest.
I thought I thought of this a lot during this as the water was rising and houses around were flooding. It's like, okay, if it gets to this level, what am I going to do? If it gets to the second level, because at this point we're trapped. We can't leave. I mean, that's a lot of people. Oh, why don't you just leave? It's like I could have left that Friday. We could have left, and I got to hear my wife the entire storm duration, which was like 5 days of being inundated with rain and lightning and tornadoes and craziness. And she kept saying, I told you we should have left. And she was
God.
right. And I knew she was right. And usually we do leave. Like, if it's a 2 or more, that's kind of the rule. We leave. No offense. It's like, hey, let's just get out of the way. You don't know. I mean, obviously your life is the most important thing first. Then your property and everything else second. But I listened to what everybody else said. The expert said, well, it's not going to be a big deal. So just stay here and it'll pass through and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But you're on your end. I mean, I saw you like on roofs and like engineering this massive ecosystem where you were pumping water out of your yard, and I'm like, who is this person? This is like
Yeah,
my best
dude.
friend I've grown up with, and I did not know that you had 1/5 of these skills.
Yeah.
I mean, you were like Forge and the X-Men, like crafting these, you know, devices out of
Right?
things you had. I was like, what is this? Who is this guy?
Hey, man, whenever you like whenever it gets down to like, I guess you're kind of like it's an either do or die situation, not do or die, but kind of like you have to get something done, or in this case, water is going to be coming into your house. So whenever you're pinned up against the wall with those type of situations, I mean, you 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 learn, or you at least take a chance on figuring out a solution really quick, really quick. So that's what happened with mine is that
Yeah,
luckily my street neighborhood didn't really flood at all. I mean, it kind of the water got kind of high, but as far as it coming up, it didn't even come up to halfway past my driveway, the water. So it all stayed on the street. Now the backyard is a different story because my backyard is the lowest point out of 5 houses. My house and all the other houses around me, my backyard is the lowest point. So all of that water when it rains collects in my backyard. So I had to.
so you're the water retention pond for the neighborhood.
Yes, no, for real. Like it's
That's terrible.
I've even joked, with my wife, before about building this little mock deck, like a little lake deck,
Yeah.
in the backyard, just a little small one, just kind of like a joke, because when it does flood like that, it's almost like we have our own little lake back there.
Yeah, like front property.
Yeah. So when it got its worst Saturday, I was here in my garage, which is also is my man cave. Really, it's my man cave because I have a pool table in here. So it's not like I bring vehicles in here or nothing like that. But I was in here. I was trying to drown out. I was playing some pool, listening to some music, and I was also watching. I was watching that McGregor Mayweather fight.
Oh yeah.
And I was kind of like just doing that, but I kept every 30 minutes I would peek out my back door, and I could see the water getting higher and higher and higher, and I was slowly starting to freak out on the inside of me. I was slowly starting to freak out because I was like, okay, every time I looked out, I was like, okay, in 30 minutes we're gonna start getting water in our kitchen, and luckily it never got to that point. It got really, really, really close. But I think it's the fact that I have the manhole and the way how my property is kind of sort of.
Yeah.
It was getting to that point, but then it was like, that was kind of like the point where it didn't get any higher because then all the water was just flushing into the manhole naturally. So I think that manhole, I hate it most of the time, but that day it definitely saved me a whole lot of hassle. Whole lot of repairs would have been repaired. And, that's kind of sort of, and now, I've had I'm in between jobs. I know you said you're in aviation on that side of it, and, you do that for a living. What I do for a living is I'm a pipe fitter, fabricator. That's my trade. I didn't, when I got into it, I didn't think I was going to do it forever. I just got into it and just thought I could make some quick cash because you can make some really, really good money in that industry. Not really doing a whole lot when you get in. And here I am, over 10 years later, still in the business. It's got to be getting anywhere from 10 to 15 years now. I've been doing it, and now I am what's called a nationally certified pipe fitter / fabricator.
I still don't know what you do. It just sounds really cool and important.
I just put it to you this way. That's the way I explain, with my kids. It's like, okay. I was like, we drive by the plants, okay. And I was like, okay, you see all the big tubes and big metal, the big tubes, the small ones and the big ones and all that? Scott was like, yeah, okay. I put all those together. That's my job. I put them together. I make sure that they're plumb level square. That means they're right.
And that's even more impressive than what I thought you did.
What did you think I did?
I don't know, something important where something's getting transported and you're having to do something with a valve. I don't know. I imagine the original Super Mario where they're running across the pipes and they're having to jump over those turtle shells. And then when something disastrous happens, you have to hit the little POW block and reset everything all over again before the time runs out. I don't know, something cool like that.
Well, Well, it's kind of not really like, yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, I do that.
Okay,
Screw that. It's like,
great. Don't ruin my dreams. So, okay, well, this kind of brings up and gets into the whole conspiratorial aspect because, you get into whether, well, that's all, kind of the whole basis of like, you hear your atheist friends or your Gnostic friends are like, oh, God hates us or he hates Texas because he voted for Trump or ridiculous stuff like that.
yes. Was there Jennifer Lawrence? Isn't she the
Oh,
one who said
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I
What a
mean,
ditz.
yeah, I know. Well,
That's another reason I'm not watching X-Men. It's because they're going to put her in it again. Come on
yeah,
now, really?
yeah, it's crazy, but for me, I tend to believe that I think a lot of the problems, okay, I should preface this with, you know, I'm not a firm believer, and we'll probably go back and forth on the subject that, oh my God, tomorrow is the end times, but every generation thinks they're in the end times, and obviously we all die, so I guess in a respect we are in an end time. But, but there is a lot of things pointing to that we could be in that time prophesized in Scripture or the very early stages. But that's kind of my position. If we are in that time period, this would be the very, very, very beginning. Um, People think Jesus is coming back tomorrow. That's where, I mean, today's the 23rd. This is a bunch of
Oh,
people
is he supposed to come back
prophesied.
today?
Yeah, or something terrible is supposed to
Wasn't that the
happen.
big prophecy?
Right, and nothing's happened. I mean, it
Nothing
was a
happened.
regular
Okay,
day.
right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I didn't get to sleep in. That was pretty bad. But where was I going with all this? Well, basically, my perspective is a lot of the calamities we see is because people are playing God. Um, especially with like the whole geoengineering, the weather
Yes,
manipulation stuff. I
that's
do believe it's
another,
possible. I
I
don't.
believe that, yeah, yeah, you can manipulate, um, the weather to a point where you can kind of, direct it to, now you'd have to have some serious equipment to do this though, like some
Right.
serious,
Yeah. Well,
or
there's two extremes. One is where you're saying someone actually, for malfeasance purposes or whatever, can direct a hurricane versus what they've publicly said they can do, like seeding a cloud and helping create rainstorms when they need it, or the opposite, like during the Olympics. That was the mainstream news, and that's come out, and that's more minor. But to me, any kind of manipulation of something that's sort of in God's domain, if you will,
yeah,
it's going to open up that Pandora's box. It's the same with our environment and climate change and, hormones and God, everything else that's kind of crazy in the world is, genetic, um, engineering and that sort of thing. I think when you go too far, that's when you kind of open that Pandora's box and then things start to go haywire and then we're like, then we want to blame God. It's like, is that really God? It's almost that whole Tower of Babel paradigm.
yeah. I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Um, Here's another. I kind of want to go backtrack to the to Hurricane Harvey,
Hmm.
the other conspiracy that I heard from my brother-in-law's wife. Okay,
Yeah.
now she was saying before Harvey hit. Okay, she was telling like her like my mother-in-law, my wife's mom, and she even told, I think, my wife. She said that they're not telling people how much rain is going to hit for whatever reason. She said that's my wife said. She said, "Oh, so and so said." And I'm not gonna say names because this is gonna be broadcast out into the world now. You know, it's not a private
Right.
conversation no
Yeah,
more. I'm not gonna
exactly.
be dropping names. I'm gonna
Right.
keep an identities
Even if
anonymous
only
here.
our immediate family listens this far into
Yeah,
the podcast, yeah, we still got to be careful.
yeah. So she was like, "Oh, so and so said that they're not telling people how much rain is gonna hit. They're keeping it from the public and all that, and blah 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 blah." Blah. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, well, so I was telling myself that day, like I think it was a Thursday or Friday. I said, there's no way there's going to be like this catastrophic storm coming through. And I was, what was I proven wrong? Because all
Yeah.
the amount of rain that dropped.
Well, there
And
was
then
a
I went back to what she said, and I was
yeah.
like, well, I was like, okay, well, but she was telling it my brother-in-law's wife was saying it on the point of not the fact that, like Mayor Turner, he said, okay, well we don't want to put a million people in their cars out on the highways and then have 50 inches of rain drop on them, and then all these people die, because then that's
Right.
going to be even a worse situation. Which, in my opinion, I think he more or less made the right call as far as that goes. Okay, because
Yeah,
yes, it would
well,
have been
how
way
do you
worse.
know? Like, you just don't know. The only thing that they compare it to is when everyone tried to leave for Rita,
Exactly.
and then all those people
Exactly.
died. But in my mind, and I remember that whole conspiracy because it was like a couple days before the storm hit, and it was a viral Facebook post that this girl that said she worked for a law firm that dealt with
Yes,
the
exactly.
Houston.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
But I
I remember
remember
that.
seeing it and thinking, wow, there might be something to this. And of course, the whole media attacked her, and then she turns out she was right, but nobody really gave her, whoever she was, kudos, even if she was
Yeah,
trying
but
to spread
that's where
this
that's where my
fake
that's where
news.
my brother-in-law's wife was coming from. Like, oh well, they're not telling these people the amount of rain that's going to drop for a like this conspiracy nefarious or this evil conspiracy purpose that they're not telling these people how much rain is going to come down. But they know that there's going to be like 5 feet of rain that's going to drop on Houston,
Right.
6 feet of rain, but they're not telling anybody. And she kept pounding and pounding and pounding, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, there's no way that much rain is, and boy, man, that's exactly how much rain came down. And I was just
Yeah.
like, what in the world's going on? Like, okay, so she was totally right on that end. And I talked to her. They actually stayed with us here this past week for a couple of days. They're in town,
Yeah.
so and we talked about it. That I think we talked about it. I think I brought it up there. Anyway, that's the conspiracy that was brought up from her. Like she more or less brought it to our attention as like, oh, this is a conspiracy. They're watch out. They're here comes the government again. So that's what I kind of want to get your opinion on that as far as like that one goes. But
Well, any conspiracy, the thing you have to think about is motive. What would be the point of not telling people to get out? Obviously, it would have to be really nefarious. It would mean that they want to, people to die or people to be severely in danger. And that's
yeah,
kind of, for me, that's just hard to believe on a local level. To me, I think it was just more of a political decision. Okay, if we send everybody out, they could end up another Rita, nothing happens, and all these people die. Um, at least in my opinion, and this is where I was a little, I guess, perturbed, is that I know they always go back to that disaster, where basically a lot of people try to leave Houston. This hurricane was headed towards us, and then it did a turn at the last minute and didn't even cause hardly any damage. Most of the damage was made when people tried to leave, and
yeah,
people even died. I mean, they lost their lives. It was quite a bit of people. But that was
yep,
12 years ago. You're telling me 12 years you can't figure out how to evacuate a major city, the fourth largest city in the U.S.? I mean, you know, I just, it's hard to say what was the right decision. Was the right decision made? I mean, we'll probably never know. I tell you now, I'm going to be a lot more alert as far as my stay or leave policy.
hmm
So, but I think that should be a personal decision. And you know what? A lot of criticism from people on the outside is like, well, you should have just left. You don't need the government to tell you. And yeah, I agree. We're very much both kind of libertarian in that perspective where, you don't really need the government to tell you what to do when it comes to your safety and your family's safety. But there's a lot of people that don't have that option. There's, elderly people that they don't get any kind of assistance to be able to leave if they have trouble getting out until they're actually told to leave.
yeah, hmm
So,
that's true.
yeah.
That's true.
But honestly, I think the kind of the big push. I know this is going to go into crazy town really quickly, but the reason I really wanted to get this podcast started like sooner than later is, well, partially because all this stuff's been happening like every other day. It's like there's got to be something behind it. I tend to believe it might be natural. if it's not some kind of mad scientist playing God. Have you? I mean, obviously you knew about the solar eclipse, but then also all these solar flares that might have a correlation with everything we're seeing lately.
See, I'm not. That's something you'd have to educate me on because I'm not up to date on the solar flares.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
what's
I'm
been
not
going on
either,
there?
but I work with a lot of meteorologists. I have a lot of friends who are meteorologists
Okay.
that supposedly there's correlation with the type of activity we're seeing with natural events here on the Earth.
And
Because
the
there's
solar flares?
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's been proposed. Of course, the biggest proposition is global warming, but they use that all the time. And I'm not a huge. I believe in global climate change, but I'm not convinced on. I do believe it's more of a monetary thing. Let's monetize climate change so we can make money because all the
Yeah,
fiat
let's
currencies that the
like
establishment
carbon
runs. Yeah,
footprint. Like, oh, you have a
yeah,
carbon footprint, so we're gonna charge you.
right. For the air you breathe. I'm never. I mean, we agree on this, and this is something we'll talk about a lot. Is this whole establishment New World Order system that it's just so commonly known now. It's not even a big deal, but having worked passively for these people for a good chunk of my life, they,
You know, it's kind of what I've noticed is that it's the the it's kind of been turned into a joke now. Like
yeah, it
the
is.
New World Order / Illuminati. It's brought up and everybody's just go, oh ha 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 ha, oh Illuminati, ha 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 ha. So it's not even being taken like the real evilness that's behind that stuff.
Right.
Nobody even cares.
I
Nobody even
think
cared in
I
the beginning.
well, I think in the beginning people just didn't believe any of it existed. Now
Yeah, there you go.
people,
People didn't believe. Now they're like, oh, okay,
yeah, we know
it's
it exists,
Illuminati,
but it's not
Illuminati.
a big deal. I think it's
Yeah,
that cognitive dissonance where they don't really want to know what's really going on behind the scenes and the depravity behind it, which I don't even know how far we get into that, but um, it is true. And to me, that's kind of what brought me back to my faith is realizing the nature of evil, and really evil runs the world. I mean, that is biblical as well. And
yes.
that's kind of the default, and we always have to fight against it. We always have to stand up against it and be vocal about exerting our rights and our spirituality and our faith and putting on that full armor of God, and in doing that, that's where we have our victory, our victories in Christ, obviously. But um, I do believe that that's just the way the world works, and that's kind of the perspective. I think that's going to be something that we talk about in our podcast, and also we are going to have guests at some point, so it's not
Oh,
just going to
okay.
be us rambling
Okay.
on. I don't know if that's news to you, but there's a couple people that I'd like to talk to from our perspective.
I would love to get your dad on the show. You'd be like, okay,
Oh,
let's talk to
well,
Papa Sam.
yeah, right. Well, as much as we know some characters in our lives, we'd love to have. I definitely would like to talk to subject matter experts as opposed to us just giving our opinion.
Yeah.
So, but we're definitely going to have, depending on what topic is going on, or it's
Yeah.
easier to get kind of the big fish when they're pushing a book or something. But yeah, I would love to
Oh, yeah, right.
have some folks. But the other push, and this is like I say, getting into crazy town for a lot of people, is I do believe there is a possibility that we're coming into a time period um, in history where we're going to have an alien disclosure,
A full disclosure.
a full disclosure, but um, I don't know. I don't believe that it's going to be what they're going. Obviously, it never is what they tell us it is. But I
If
believe,
just imagine, okay, like the stuff that they'll actually tell us,
right?
like the technologies they'll actually let us play with.
Yeah,
Imagine the stuff that they don't want us to know, like the real good stuff, the real,
right,
stuff that, like imagine, okay, that, okay, yeah, they're telling us, okay, we're giving us full disclosure, supposedly full disclosure. I want to know the stuff that you're not telling us. Like,
right. Exactly.
that's the real,
It's always what they're not telling you, and to me, there's always going to be an agenda behind it. To me, the whole alien disclosure thing is the last trump card of the New World Order system, because there is a big battle going on in the world. We see this whole thing here in the U.S. and the West about Trump and anti-Trump, but it's a lot deeper than that. It really is an establishment, anti-establishment, deep state versus free-thinking people, and the press versus independent press, and it's just all these converging forces battling it out. But in the spiritual realm, there's something going on, and we can see
Do
it.
you think? Do you think that? Okay, and I know that. Probably going to ruffle some feathers of our fellow Protestant brethren,
Hmm.
brothers and sisters out there. Okay, I think we both are in agreement that the rapture is just bull malarkey, right? Correct?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I have a very different perspective than most of my Protestant
Okay,
brothers and sisters.
okay, okay.
I,
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lay out my opinion. Okay,
okay,
my
sure.
opinion um, is that the classic rapture, the classic rapture belief uh, that's been going on for years now. To me, it's just total BS.
Yeah.
But do you think that they're going to try to pull that,
Well,
like some kind of Project
discussed.
Bluebeam type of
No,
deal?
I really don't. I've heard that a million times. I think that's just. I think I hope I pray that the days of this establishment creature that we're under, for lack of a better word, this new world order system is not going to do something that ridiculous, pull another false flag crazy thing like that to make Christians or anybody believe that an event's happen. I don't think they have to go that far. They really don't have to do much, quite honestly. The whole idea of this final trump card would be something, and this is not a conspiracy. This is something that President Reagan has said, President Clinton, other dignitaries from other Western governments, that if we faced an outside threat
Hmm.
that wasn't from this world, that would be the catalyst to unite all of the world's religions, cultures, governments, and they would be under this one world system very quickly in order to fight this common enemy, this common threat. So I don't think you
Which
have to
which
go.
which I think is going to be a total. It's going to be man-made also. That's just my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah,
It's going to
definitely.
be
And
man-made.
that's
We're going
when
to
we
ships.
get into the whole prophecy thing, because that's where I tend to disagree with a lot of Christians, is they're looking for this left behind. I think the big thing to watch out for is this great deception that will cause a lot of people to lose their faith.
Exactly, and that's
Um,
what they want.
and
That's what they
I
want.
do believe that's where the fallacy of a pre-tribulation rapture is, where you have this dull sense that you're just not going to be, you're exempt from everything. You're exempt. Jesus is going to rescue you from anything, and then you're fine. And don't worry, just let everything go. All this evil's happening in the world, and it's in God's hands. And that's really not what Scripture tells us to do. It tells us we're supposed to, openly, call out the forces of evil and fight against it, and not just sit passively by and wait to be rescued. I don't believe that's the nature of or the will of our Creator.
Yeah, I agree with you on there.
Yeah.
That's anti-biblical. That belief that
Yeah, but I
that
want to get into specifics because, anytime we make claims, I want to make sure that we get into Scripture, and I would love to hear the Catholic perspective. I mean, there's so many cool things that you've taught me from your kind of perspective and what you see and what people that see versus what we see. So I think it'll be interesting to kind of flesh out that dynamic, and then hopefully have guests that can kind of solidify
give
those
their
things as well.
give their either agree or disagree, and
Right.
give their opinions on it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, absolutely. It's
So
obviously
as crazy as all this sounds, if tomorrow there's like a UFO standing outside of like Washington D.C. or something, I want to make sure this podcast is on
yeah.
record.
If tomorrow I'm coming out of the stripes with my tacos in the morning and I see, I look up in the sky and there's Jesus is there just chilling,
Right.
floating, just
Yeah.
hands up in the air like he's about to sing Hallelujah, and all that.
Yeah.
I probably will drop my tacos first,
Right.
and then I'll be like, "Oh, wait a minute! That's not in the Bible.
And see, this is how at
That's
the end of
not
the
in the Bible. So
right, and this is also how we know at the end of the day you're not a real Mexican because you're eating tacos from Stripe,
exactly.
a, a convenience store.
Right.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah. No, the
terrible.
Catholic perspective is that, obviously the rapture isn't, um, uh, the Catholic Church doesn't believe in a rapture.
Yeah,
Uh, as far as Jesus coming down and meeting him halfway, that's nonsense
yeah.
from
Well, it's
a Catholic
interesting.
point of view.
I can't wait to get into depth talking about it and
Yeah.
sharing that sort of thing and hopefully having, like I said, some
Yeah.
people that know about the subject a little bit more. I've done my studies, and I do believe there is a specific chronology. People say you don't know the time or day. That's obviously in Scripture, but that's like the time or day of when things kick off. But Jesus himself very clearly told us the chronology of things that will happen, and it just doesn't wash with, unfortunately, the majority of the Protestant churches' view on how things roll out. So, and I know it sounds crazy. That shouldn't be our focus of our faith, but things are getting crazy. Things are like we're
These things
seeing signs.
are getting crazy.
Yeah, we
That's
have
true.
to be aware of any time, even 100,000 years ago. I mean, 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, people should have been, discerning and uh and on top of things. So I don't think that's a bad thing. So I mean, that's kind of one of the points of the podcast is we're going to talk about stuff that's taboo amongst the church. Crazy conspiracies that maybe don't really mesh, or that people, you know, I'm in a great church where my pastor is very open-minded. He always goes back to scripture, but he loves talking about anything. It's not taboo, but I know I've helped out in other ministries or known other pastors, and you can't even get 5 feet from these subjects. They just kind of freak out.
Uh-huh.
So I could imagine it's got to be similar, in the Catholic Church as well, depending
Yeah,
on the
I mean,
subject.
we have our we have the laity, which is the people.
Right.
You have the clergy and you have the laity. The clergy are obviously the priests, the deacons, bishops, archbishops, and all that. Then you have the laity, which is like myself, and we have our beliefs, and we have our beliefs in the church, and then but we also have our we have our opinions on the side, and be like, okay, well, and even uh, the the deacons and priests have it too. You know, just because you become that doesn't mean you can't be closed off to your own opinions. You still have to stay faithful to uh, to the church, and you have to live that lifestyle of live the life of grace and all that. But
Yeah.
like I said, like you were saying, your pastor's open minded to it, and so is the people who I go to church with also.
Yeah,
They
that's
like
cool.
talking about that kind of stuff, and they're not like, oh no no no, don't bring that up. It's the same deal. Same
Yeah.
deal. Yeah.
Well, awesome. I think it kind of gives a good indication of where we're going. I mean, we're all over the place today, but we will be a little more. We'll actually have news stories we're going to cover and try to
Yeah.
stay
I
on
kind of like
specific
it when it's
topics.
just kind of like, hey, let's just it's like let's just throw it out there and whatever sticks. It's like throwing a bunch of mud to the wall and hey, whatever sticks,
Right,
that's what we're
right.
talking
Yeah,
about.
we'll kind of
You
focus that direction. Yeah, I think we'll get a
know?
little bit better at figuring out what we're
Yeah.
going to do
I'm
at
sure we'll
what
start off
point.
with a format and then it'll just fall apart as soon as we
Yeah,
start talking.
exactly. That'll make it fun for editing, which luckily I am
Yeah.
the engineer and editor right now, so.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's our first podcast, I guess. If did you have anything else you wanted to add on the public record before something crazy happens tomorrow?
No, 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 no.
I do have crazy
Uh,
Star Wars predictions, but I think I'll leave
oh
that for
my
the next.
goodness. For the next one.
Yeah, but we got to do it soon because I have a feeling all that stuff's gonna get totally spoiled.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay. We'll
but
have
I think
to.
we'll leave that as a cliffhanger for the one person probably still listening.
Well, yeah, yeah. I have some Star Wars stuff I want to bring up too. Yeah, definitely the next one we'll talk about that. And you know, uh, it was great doing the podcast, this first one. And Just everybody out there, in case stuff hits the fan, make sure you have an evacuation plan. Make sure you have a plan like that.
I
And
love that. That should be our closer of
yeah,
every
there
episode.
you go. There you go. I mean, I can't say the S word, but
Right. This is
not
a
that I don't
family
want to.
show.
But
Right.
yeah, the family show. So stuff hits the fan. Make sure you got your 72-hour bag packed and ready to go.
Right. Make sure you're right with your creator. That's
Yes.
a good way to end this. And I'm sorry that we had such a grim title. It was supposed to be funny, but now it's just sad.
Yeah. We'll change that.
We can't change the title. We're stuck with it now. This is it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So we'll catch you next time, and hopefully we have a really awesome theme song on the back end, but probably not this time around.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Oh wow, you're still here. Thanks for listening to the final podcast you'll ever hear, episode 0. Please follow us on Twitter at Final Podcasts. Also like us on Facebook, also at Final Podcasts. Thanks and God bless.